Hi, I'm Robert Nowlin, and I am a paraprofessional at a high school here in Kansas City, Kansas. And I am giving you a sample of a presentation I'm going to be giving tomorrow to some teachers there. This presentation is called Technology for Students with Special Needs, and it is about the universal design approach to giving educational technology for students who have needs and also for their classmates, and it's a way to remove the stigma for kids who have IEPs. So what I'm going to do today is first I'm going to ask everyone at your table to open up a Google Slide in the Chrome browser. If you don't have a Chrome browser, I would encourage you to go ahead and download it really quickly. You can download it either from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools self-service application, and it will download it immediately and install it for you, or you can go to Apple Store or Play Store, depending on what device you have, if it's your personal device. Okay, so the objective for this is that teachers and staff will explore the use of educational technologies for students with special needs. Okay. And the idea is today I am going to have you go through an overview of educational technology, and we're also going to do an introduction by giving my philosophy of technology. So first of all, we'll start with that. So educational technology bridges gaps between the teacher and the learner, and the learner and the learner. Let me say that again. Educational technology bridges the gaps between the teacher and the student, the learner, and the learner and other learners. There are reasons for this, okay? So I will essentially, though, sum this up this way, okay? As educational technology can improve students' access to their general curriculum, okay? Why do I say this? Why educational technology for students with special needs? Well, educational technology bridges gaps among students with different abilities and proficiencies. Educational technology adds independence for students with special needs. And finally, educational technology is a form of assistive technology when it is used to improve access to general education, okay, for students with special needs. Okay, defining the exceptional learner. The exceptional learner is more diverse and is broader than the special needs cohort. The special needs cohorts are specifically students with IEPs and individualized educational plans, and are assigned advocates or special ed teachers. However, the exceptional learner is broader than this. It includes people who don't necessarily have individualized education plans. They haven't been identified with a disability. However, they have excelling abilities in one area, and maybe they have some other weaknesses in some other areas. They might have special giftings in areas where we oftentimes overlook. They have strengths in areas that we don't see yet, or maybe we do see them, and we're not quite sure yet how to cultivate those. Learning modalities, as another example, they can be learners who learn primarily by hearing what people say to them, and they can remember it. And sometimes they learn by hearing and saying it to their partner. You know, some of those who are the extroverted people, who are the students who are always talking. Sometimes they're the ones who are actually needing to voice that, what they're hearing. Others are visual, tactile people who really have to have something that they can see and study and play with. Some people are very, very strong in these areas, one area or two, but very weak in another area. And that can cause problems if the teacher's primary strength is in an area where the student is not strong in. Let me emphasize, though, it doesn't mean that one person's right and one person's wrong. It just means that we're wired differently, okay? It just means that we have different ways of thinking. We're created differently, all right? So, what I want to encourage you today, then, is to think of your different students and their different exceptionalities, and think about how the technology that you see every day and the technology that you're going to see today is going to help your students excel in the areas where they need some help in those areas where they're not as strong. Okay, so the thing is, the one reason I really want to push educational technology is because it has the capability of becoming a strength for students by giving them creativity, innovation, and digital citizenship. That is a huge deal, okay? A huge deal. 21st century skills. The idea, 2004, actually even requires that IEP teams consider the assistive technology needs of students and children with disabilities. There are students here who have that. Part of the IEP. If you have a student with one, you would have access to that. If you don't have that student, you wouldn't have access to that information about them. Okay, I really want to quickly show you a video, just a clip of it. It's a YouTube video on a man who gives a little introduction to what does universal design mean in technology.
About universal design for learning. And universal design for learning is based on this thing called universal design, which my understanding is originally came out of architecture and urban planning and that kind of thing. And the idea is that you're building public spaces for people that are designed in such a way that they meet the needs of people with special needs, but at the same time, the way that they're designed actually work for everybody. And the typical examples that are given are the curb cuts in sidewalks. So so you don't have to go up over the curb. It's just like a little ramp that gets you up. And as somebody who rides their bicycle to work every day, I recognize that whereas that works for people in wheelchairs, it also works for people on bikes or maybe older people who can't lift their legs up as high. So another example is closed captioning on a TV, originally designed for people who are hard of hearing. In fact, works really well if you're in a crowded restaurant and they don't want to have the volume turned up, so they just use the closed captioning, and everybody can benefit. So
okay, so the idea then is even at my own house, I have lights in the closets. That's really an architectural design for people who are visually impaired, or people who are whose eyes are aging, people who are at an age now where they have to have extra light in order to see in dark spaces. Yet, does it help me and my wife personally, who are middle-aged? Of course it does. Yes, we love lights in our closets, okay? So, technology is one area where we can be very innovative in helping meet the needs of particular individuals who really must have that assistance in order to be independent, yet at the same time it helps others. It removes the stigma from students who don't want to be identified as those weirdos in the corner over here. They don't want to be seen as that. They want to just be seen as anybody else. So I'm going to drive into the next part of this, okay? I'm going to go into talking about some of the technology that we can use. One of those is Google Drive and Google Docs, okay? I want you to go into your KCKPS self-service settings, self-service, and I want you to see if you can find these. Google Drive, Inspiration 9, Read Write Gold. Okay, here's how to get into KCKPS self-service if you don't know how to do that yet. Command space will bring up a spotlight search, and then you type in self-service and it'll come up, and then you just click on it and you see the symbol of the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools on it. It's kind of cool. And then when the application comes up, you type in. I typed in Google, and I brought up 4 different Google applications. I already have Google Chrome and Google Drive installed, so it just says reinstall, because I might just have a problem. I might need to erase it, download it again, and it'll just create a new file. It also says on old things I haven't installed to install. So the example here that I have of Google products for Google Drive, did you know that Google Drive actually can function just like Dropbox? It's not just all online. It is online in the cloud. However, you can actually sync it to your computer. Your students can sync it to their computers. And they can actually have it on their hard drives. And so when they're doing... So you can put any files you want in that Finder folder that the Google Drive will sync to. It works beautifully. It even stores your Google Slides, your Google Docs, and your Google Sheets on there. Now, in the event that you don't have Google Drive app on your computer, or you don't want to install Google Drive app, here's another way that you can do it. If you have Chrome, you got to have Chrome for this, Google Chrome browser. The way that you add that offline functionality is that you open Google Docs. You click on the triple horizontal lines right next to Google Docs, and then you go to the settings wheel, click on the settings wheel, and then you'll have a window that'll come up and it'll show a little place to the right hand side of the word offline. Make sure that little button that you press is blue, and then it'll add everything offline. There's another way you can do it. You can actually go on the three dots next to an actual file, click on it, and you can just say click on the add to offline. And then anytime, especially with the internet around here, because you know how it's oftentimes it goes in and out, not dependable, and you have your whole class, you can't do an assignment, there are certain essential documents that you can make sure that you store them offline, and you can actually fairly easily walk your whole class through this. The only thing is, I would first suggest that you ask them to do Google Chrome first. Download Google Chrome, and just have the whole class do that. Guide them through that. And then take time to add that offline option. And then, thirdly, go in and make that individual file offline just to make sure that it's actually offline. And if you really want to go crazy on this, you can actually download the Google app, the Google Docs app. So, another thing I want to show you really quick is Google Read and Write. It's an extension. It's a toolbar on the top that will actually, you can highlight text and it'll read it for you. That's great for students whose reading level is still a little low. ELL students, it's wonderful. Not just for students with disabilities, okay? But students with disabilities would definitely use this as well. You see what I mean? It's the universal design. You can also use graphic organizers. There's an Inspiration 9 app that's also in self-service. You just, instead of Googling Google, you search for Inspiration 9 and then download that. And here is a map that I created. Here's one I did for a whole class, literacy support. I used a closed procedure and made each branch of the mind map the subheading, one of the sections, one of the subheadings within the section of that particular chapter. So I took a chapter section, and then there were 4 subheadings, and sometimes I even broke those subheadings even into sub-subheadings. And so what they would basically have to do is, what's the main point? Just write a couple notes on the main point of each thing. It gives them concept of print, and it also helps students to really, when they not really sure what the most important things are in the text. Okay. Another example that I gave was a particular student who isn't really able to write well. His motor skills aren't really good because of a medical health condition, and I took something that he was supposed to actually write a summary on, a chapter. I use closed procedure, and it's kind of hard to see this, but I put in the lines in here, and it's kind of the same idea. It's the same idea as the last mind map, basically. I got to get out of here because I'm almost out of time. Desmos is an application that Mrs. Mackenzie Justice introduced me to. So